What's up, everybody? My name is Bryce Koon. Those beats are brought to you by Ralph Leary himself, mixing it up in his home studio. He does a fantastic job with that, so make sure to give him a follow on social media. We got a great show, talking transfer portal here tonight, Swarm Talk by the Crowded Booth. We're talking wants, we're talking needs, little baby action in here tonight. We can't wait to do that. Ralph, go ahead and hit it, man. It's time.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. Coming on the Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
All right. We are back and ready for a fantastic Thursday evening. Hoping you're having a great one wherever you're watching. If you're listening on the radio tomorrow or if you're listening in podcast form, make sure to hit it in time. Subscribe, like, comment, 5-star review, wherever you listen, wherever you get this content. Make sure and join the Discord, which is down below, and the In Brent Key We Trust merch is down below. We're talking transfer portal, and we're talking what is the news, the lack thereof, surrounding Georgia Tech right now. We're going to be talking that here tonight. Can't wait. If you're in the comments, if you're on Twitter and you want to comment, you want to ask a question, hit the link, head over to the YouTube. We're going to be talking with you for about 30, 45 minutes or so. Let's talk here. Transfer portal. Big news is that there's no news currently right now for Georgia Tech. That's the big news. Let's talk about this, and we're going to get your comments in here. Let's start with who's leaving. We obviously know that Jeff Sims is leaving. Tyson Pumachan announced today that he's leaving. There's a lot of different folks that have been on the fence. None bigger. We're going to tackle the first one here tonight, in Nate McCollum. What does it look like for Nate McCollum to stay? What does it look like for him to leave? We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to go into some of the needs that need to happen and maybe where Brent Key needs to look to fill some of the gaps. Not a ton, maybe not as many as last year, but where he needs to fill some of the holes which Georgia Tech will have to happen and have to go into the 2023 season. Talking all about it. Let's start with Nate McCollum. With Nate McCollum, what is the story here? McCollum post before, and Michael, you're already in there with the question. Appreciate you tuning in. McCollum is already in here, and not in here in the show. Michael Lane's already talking about McCollum here in tonight's show. But where we're at with this, McCollum post on social media that he's intending to enter the portal. Now, you, me, all of us knew that on December the 5th is when it had to become official. Kids could announce they intended to transfer all season long. That was fine, but they could not officially put their name in the portal. Georgia Tech's administration could not officially take and move the paperwork into the transfer portal until December the 5th. Well, that paperwork is still not hit yet. Still not hit. And so let's talk about tonight, what does that mean, and what does it lead us to believe? Well, I think the biggest thing we've talked about with Nate McCollum is that, and I'll still say my stance, if I'm a betting man, I wouldn't put my money on him staying at Georgia Tech. But the Jackets and people are trying to put together an NIL package for him to stay. Look, you can go over to On3. You can look at his valuation. You can look at a lot of different things. But what does it look like to see? And GT Bowhunter 90 is also, in another aspect, it's NIL. And then it's also the OC. Who's the offensive coordinator going to be? I think that he's got to figure that out. He's got to figure out who is going to be that. It's huge for a kid that's, had a great year this last year. And you can't blame him for wanting to cash in on that. Is it Georgia Tech? We don't know. I don't believe it is. Mississippi State's been thrown around as a destination. Not a bad one with them losing a couple of receivers. He could go in there if he puts up a big year for them. With Mike Leach, who knows? I know Memphis has been mentioned as another school that would have some interest. Interesting to see what they would offer, really. Georgia's been another one that people have peddled around and talked about. But this to say is that he's not officially in the portal yet, so it's not out on him ever entering. It's not out on him staying, though, yet. So we're going to have to manage and see what that looks like. And this is it right here. Has a $31K NIL evaluation. So if that's what they evaluate him at, and appreciate that, it'll be interesting to see what the actual offer is. I know Tech's trying to put some stuff together for him. That's maybe the delay, and he's kind of, much like right now in MLB free agency with Dansby Swanson. That's for on the same channel, but a different playlist that Ralph and I are going to talk about later. But he's allowing his hometown team, in this case Georgia Tech, to put together an offer, to put together something to try to keep him. We're going to talk about that, obviously, in the coming days, what it looks like coming out. If you're watching live, make sure to hit the like button. Let's try to get, Ralph, what do we say? We want to be modest. Try to get us to 50 likes. Like, that's not hard. It helps us in the feed and getting this out here on Georgia Tech. Swarm Talk Podcast, brought to you by Section 103, brought to you also by the Crowded Booth as well. Let's see. Here we go. Talking McCollum. Now we're moving on to Wants and Needs, everyone's favorite Lil Baby song. Let's get it right here, and let's start on the defensive side of the football, which personally for me, I feel like there's more needs there. The second level, okay, is pretty clean cut to me. Right now, if I'm a betting man, I'm saying that, Spider Sims is coming back, Miles Sims. I'm saying that Zamari Walton's coming back. You have the two-headed monster at safety in Clayton Powell-Lee and in LaMiles Brooks coming back. You've got a couple guys at nickel that are coming back. You also have, and I'm sorry, Montega, is Lil Baby not featured in Wants and Needs? Because he's got a great verse, and I'm pretty sure that he comes in. So I apologize. I'm a Drake fan. His latest song, 21, Can You Do Something For Me? It's a little sus. Lil Baby carries that song. Thank you, Ralph. Let's talk about it here. So if your secondary is pretty, you feel like it's pretty good. And look, that's one of the big reasons that Rico Dowdle is going to be the guy, or Nico Dowdle is going to be the guy that they bring in. I mean, they've dropped Jarvis Lee, they've dropped a kind of some other guys that they know, which should be a telling sign. This is where they feel like the most depth is, and you're bringing everybody back. So from a roster crunch standpoint, you're good there. Like, let's sit there. It was a good unit, and you feel like they're going to get better. You have Ken Johnson, you have Kenyatta Watson, you have Amari Harvey, all guys who can play kind of that slot and cornerback position as well that you feel good about. Let's roll the biggest sense, and let's get Lil Babies in the chat right here. We got Lil Baby in the chat. Let's get it right here with the linebacker position. You're losing Ace Ely. You're losing Charlie Thomas. What do you have coming back? You have a guy in Trinius Tatum who saw some playing time this year. Was kind of that was kind of seeing that. Ralph, I want you to go ahead and star. I want you to go ahead and get this one up here. And there's Ralph right there. There we go. Good for you, Matt. So we're talking about linebacker positions in GT Fan 2. That's exactly what we're talking about right now. So you have Trinius Tatum coming back. You have other guys in the fray. Tyson Miguez, if he's healthy, what does he look like? I would say this at the sense of the linebacker position is you have a guy in Katavian Franks who hasn't officially entered the portal yet. As to the latest of my knowledge, he has not. So all this to say is you have some young potential playmakers at that position. And Kyle Effort, you're exactly right there, Russell Snyder. Kyle Effort's another guy. But what will make me more comfortable, maybe it doesn't make you more comfortable, and you let me know, is if you could pair a graduate transfer or a veteran linebacker, and I'm thinking upperclassman here, maybe he has 2 years of eligibility left, maybe he just has 1 year and he's that grad transfer. You pair him with a Trinius Tatum, and you allow these guys to lean in and learn. You allow these guys to lean in and learn from the veteran guy. It's kind of what Ace Ely was. I would love if they could find another guy with a similar skill set of Ace Ely that could help bring along some of these younger linebackers. So that would be something I'd like to see. Now, I know you guys already got some comments in there. We're going to get those. Ralph is starring those as we speak. We're going to get to some of those questions. Adam, not tonight. No call-ins tonight. Ralph's phone is blowing up. We got a little issue on that end. Let's move farther. So we've talked about linebacker, and I feel like that's something that if you could go get one That would be huge. Just one veteran linebacker or a guy that, you feel like that even if he has 2 to 3 years remaining, he's a guy that can step in and play right away. Because Trinius Tatum and Tyson Miguez, like we just haven't seen enough of them in a starting role to know what they're going to have. And if Jason Seymour, linebackers coach, feels like he can develop them, and Coach Thacker can develop them into starters, it's great. But look, I think that would, I think that it'd be big to be able to sit there and say, we got a veteran guy, and now we can rotate Miguez, we can rotate Kyle Effer that we talked about, Katavian Franks, and we also can rotate Trinius Tatum. All of these players, you can be able to plug and play. It's hard. It makes me feel uncomfortable to roll in with 2 young guys with not a lot of playing experience. Just don't think Tech's at the spot where you can do that. You can afford to do that unless they take some great strides that we're going to see. So that's the linebacker position. Let's take it down to defensive line. The defensive line is one position group in my sphere that I think grew a lot this year. Grew a lot. Especially, and give credit to David Turner. Ralph changes it there, Adam. No, Ralph, yeah, you can, if you won't mind changing that real quick, taking that number out, because Adam's got a good point there. All of that to say is, without Keon White, where do you go? Sylvain Yanjuan, great player. He can come back, a great rotational piece, and had some strides this year. I don't love him in a featured pass rusher role. I think that's a lot, unless he takes big jumps. Now, we're just talking about as of December 8th, 2022. Okay, let's look elsewhere. Noah Collins. Could he be that guy? I don't know. I don't love that either necessarily. And we keep looking, as at the depth chart per se. And so we're going to keep going with some names here. So you had Keon White, Sylvain Yanjuan, Josh Robertson. Is he a guy that can ascend into that role? Kevin Harris, a guy who still has, obviously, some eligibility. So when you look at the edge position, the defensive end, you're losing Keon White. You could have a guy in Kyle Kennard that can come back. But I think that this team could benefit from a defensive end that could come in and be that primary guy. And we forget that Keon White in his first year was hurt. We forget that sometimes. So what we saw this year is you need a guy that can – Tech really would like to find someone that they feel like is underrated, and that's what they did. And let's paint the picture of that. And you guys, I want you to go, and right now, go over to 247sports.com, look in the transfer portal, and throw out some defensive ends that maybe make sense. Keon White was a guy at Old Dominion who put up some good numbers, but took that jump from the Group of 5 to Power 5. I don't necessarily see these guys taking a jump from, let's just say, another Power 5, a high-level player coming over. It's going to have to either be a guy that's on the, a bench player at another Power 5 school, or a Group of 5 really good player that sees Tech as a step up. So that's going to be something interesting to kind of watch and monitor going forward. I think they need at least one edge guy. I like some of the players that are on that roster. We talked about, you guys were throwing down in the comments, Kevin Harris. You talked about, obviously, Kyle Kennard. We can't forget about him, the ability for him to come back. Unless Josh Robinson or Noah Collins, in my opinion, or Kevin Harris take a step up in a role, you got to have more than Sylvain and Kyle Kennard at a defensive end position. I'd love to see just a little, maybe a guy that he's a third down guy, and you can put him on the field in third down to go get the quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out. It's going to be very interesting. I want to move inside. To me, and maybe we should do, a show next week on this, but to me, if there's a group that gives the most improved, you may have to go to the back end. But I think what was underrated is the interior defensive line. Look, obviously you guys were, spamming Zeke Biggers, the player that he is. Talk about Daquan Dowse, a guy that, along with the help of Larry Knight and David Turner, and a lot of kudos to David Turner coming in this season, kind of elevated his play. You're still going to have a guy in Micaiah Scott. You're still going to have a guy in Akilo Stone and Jason Moore, who had that sack in the North Carolina game. The guy that probably will be put on scholarship. We'll see. So I think with all of this, though, is we see the better teams and we see some of the better teams that you have. Look, I'm really high on Horace Lockett and KJ Miles, especially Horace Lockett. Could one of those guys slide to the outside? Maybe so. So in Montega, you're exactly right in this comment. And Ralph, I'll throw this one up. You're exactly right in this. Is the secondary is probably winning it, but I think that the interior defensive line is a close second. Just because some games they did take over. They did play a good brand of football. They did help the defense, with that interior pressure. And I want to add this bit too. When you look in the NFL and you look at where some of the more dominant pass rushers, it's not necessarily edge guys anymore. I mean, there are some really good edge rushers in the NFL. But when I think of, the past couple of years, what we've seen, you've seen a guy like a J.J. Watt. They can play up in the middle. The best to do it right now, and maybe one of the best ever by the time he's done, Aaron Donald. You could look at his accolades and what he's done. That's a guy that'll play right over the center, and he'll play, what is it, Ralph, a 2-eye? He'll play inside the guard as well sometimes. So, guys that can come in right there. And then if you want to not look too far from Bobby Dodd, I know that he went to Clemson, but Grady Jarrett, is a guy that has been very, very good for a long time in Atlanta. So defensive tackle, I think in this sense, is where can Georgia Tech find a piece? Look, Zeke Biggers is a good player, and he's going to take a step up. I think that if Tech could find another piece to go there and just make so much depth, on the line, because when you look at some of the games that they lost, and if you look at the program that Brent Key wants to build, I think he wants to build physical, nasty in the trenches. If you can add another piece, let's say an edge guy and an interior defensive line guy, you start to see that defensive line have a lot of depth, and you don't put as much pressure on Horace Lockett and KJ Miles to take that big step, So that's defensively where I'm at. If we kind of recap here, if you're just joining us, we're talking transfer portal needs on the defensive side of the football. We've talked about I'd love to see a veteran linebacker come in if it's my wish list. I'd love to see an edge rusher, and then I'd love to see another defensive lineman. And look, the defensive lineman doesn't have to be a stud. Just another. I don't want to. He's got to be somewhere in between a stud and just a body. I think this has got to just be a solid contributor. Maybe it's a grad transfer. Like, you have a young talent. Is it? You just have to ask yourself, as this staff evaluates, are those guys ready to take that jump? Could you have a stopgap? So let's talk here. Let's switch over to offense, and I see some of the stuff in there with special teams, and we'll get to that. Switching over to the offensive side of the football. So we're going to start from outside to in, and we're going to start at the wide receiver position. A lot of it depends. I think you're going to have to go grab one or two guys. Depending on what happens with Nate McCollum, I think that you could see, and I'll say this. I was told by someone with this, and it really makes a lot of sense. This is across any sport, any team. But you don't know until you give him an opportunity. Malik Rutherford was a guy this year that we really saw when he got opportunity, he showed some promise. He showed some potential. In my mind, I think that Nate McCollum, while a fantastic piece this year for Georgia Tech, was it just a bright spot on a really, really dim-lit offense? Like, was he just so good because the offense was so bad? Now, look, I think the kid's a quality player, but if you put Malik Rutherford with the same reps, the same opportunities, the same passes thrown to, could he put up the same numbers? I don't know. But I think without opportunity, we're not going to know that. What I would like to see them do, and you have a guy in Leo Blackburn, that, man, if he's healthy, he's going to be a stud. You got a guy, and you just put it in there, DJ Moore, who I think is going to be a contributor next season for this team. James Blackstream. But what you don't have on this roster, And then another one, Jamal Haynes. That's another guy that, I feel like could enter the portal, but who knows? You don't have a big-bodied receiver. And I mean, one of those guys that's like 6'2", 200, 205, physical, they can just go up and get the football. Now, Randall, you just hit the nail on the head who that could be. Avery Boyd. But is he going to be healthy? See, if you could roll out next season, and let's say Nate McCollum's gone, okay? But if you could roll out next season, let's just say your top three receivers are Leo on one side, Malik Rutherford in the slot. Who are you putting at that other outside receiver? I feel like that's a piece missing from this roster. You need to find someone this is just a wish list. This is not no inside source. It's just us talking fans about where they want to go with this. But I think that in this sense, I'd like to have a big-bodied receiver. Now, I'm going to take it to your point right here. We had that in EJ and never used him like that. You're right. I think EJ's skill set and what we're going to see his opportunities at the next level come are really going to be at a tight end type position. I believe so. And you're exactly right there, TD Jake. EJ should have played tight end from the start. TD Jake, I think something happened with you in the Discord. DM the Crowded Booth or myself on Twitter, or DM the Crowded Booth, and we can see what we had happen with that. But that's kind of where I'm thinking with some of these things on the outside. So let's get a little more inside and let's talk about that tight end position. The first offer out of the portal was to a young man who, played tight end at USF, only 22 snaps this past year. Dylan Leonard, I think, can come back. But the thing is, with this tight end position, if you go back to clean old-fashioned hate, there's a real, and Ralph may laugh when I say this down the bottom, but Ralph was calling me. He was working. He was driving his UPS truck. As I know, one of the viewers also works for UPS, so Ralph, he knows the grind. When you go back to that game, Tech really needs a weapon that they can throw to and that can be counted on at the tight end position. And I think in that game, we all know it could have been a 14-0 score really easily if Dylan Leonard catches that pass, if Luke Benson catches a pass. So it's not a knock on that. There just has to be a guy where, a lot of teams outside of the one in Athens that just has a unicorn of a room, they have a pass blocking and a pass catching tight end. We really have to identify that. I know a lot of you talk about Billy Ward, but I think that the thing is I need to see, what would that look like? And Randall, I wanted to get to this because you bring up a great point. P.J. Harris is kind of a hybrid. Where did they see him in this offense? I think it needs to be identified. He's a big receiver, but is he the pass-catching type of tight end that you need? I don't know. I think with an offensive coordinator, when that hire is made, we'll see. But you got to have a guy that you can count on in the red zone. And I think what hurt so much in the Georgia game was that we saw a missed opportunity. And I know we don't want to go back, but let's just go back. Let's just go back to this. What hurt so much is that you knew you could have taken a 14-0 lead, and then when they take the ball in offense, they've got about 4 dudes in that room that are amongst the best in the country. Like, they really do. If Reek Gilbert was healthy, if he mentally, if he was fine, he would be unreal. Oscar Delpa is another guy they have. So I think that made matters worse. Like, that was salt in the wound to know that, man, it's a wealth of options they have there, a wealth of riches. If Tech can just find one guy, and it doesn't have to be, the next 5-star tight end. It's just got to be a guy that comes in and can make some plays. Look, you can have your blocking tight ends, but you've got to be able to do that. So we've gone from receiver. We've gone to tight end. Let's take it into the offensive line. I'll say this, and I see some of your questions. We're going to get to that. Ralph, will you go ahead and star Aaron Holland's comment about Aaron Joe? I want to get to. Well, I do want to answer that because that was news today. The offensive line. We talked in the Discord group earlier today. If you haven't joined, hit the link down below. It's free to join. You're going to want to, and Ralph can attest to this. by January the 2nd, if you're not in the Discord, you need to get in the Discord if you want to know what's happening by January the 2nd. That's going to be big for you, or December 26th, we'll say. So, all this to say, though, Brent Key's view of what the offensive line wants to look like is a view that he and I, not that he would care, but that I also hold. At some point with this offensive line, you have to figure out what you have. You have to let these guys play through the growing pains of growing together as young, inexperienced college offensive linemen. Look, Pierce Quick was a really, really good, really good pickup. But he hadn't played a lot of college football. That's not to say that he's not going to be a good offensive lineman. So these guys that you get in from power schools, you brought in a kid from Alabama, you brought in a kid from Clemson, they just hadn't played a lot of football yet. So you're still taking a flyer on them. So Matt, yes, his view is different in the sense of the roster construction was also different. But I think that this group that we saw towards the end of the season, guys like Ja'Kai Leftwich, Wayne Green, Paul Tacho, who really will be healthy next year, was battling an injury the whole year, never really healthy. Weston Franklin, some of these guys, now they have a year under their belt. Now they know what it's like to play college football. A lot of them didn't have a ton of snaps outside of Jordan Williams. Nobody had a majority, even one full season. Weston Franklin had played a handful of snaps, some games back in 2021, but he never really had been a full-time starter. So you have to do that. And, Matt, I think you're exactly right on the comment that you just threw up there, is that they worked all year together. They went through a lot of growing pains. Guys, we go back. Weston Franklin in the Clemson game looked lost at times, looked absolutely lost. But the thing is that a full offseason now, some stability provided by Brent Key, and this is the big key. I don't think that Georgia Tech is going to go in the portal like they did last year for offensive line. What I think that they're going to do is I think they're going to turn around and say, we're going to develop from within. And I think that speaks to what happened on Monday. Key wants to build a physical offensive line. I think he believes in the guys that he has. And it's not that he won't bring in competition, but the time is necessarily over to feel like you have to go to the portal constantly for offensive line talent, and that the turnover rate is so high every single year, and that's what it was like under Collins. Well, now I feel like you have a and Ralph, they want you to post a link to the Discord into the thing, so we're going to get that here in just a second. I'm going to get it to Ralph here in just a second when we go to commercial real quick, but you don't have a revolving door anymore at offensive line. And so the big thing is that I think that you're going to see what you got. You're going to grow these young kids that are here last year, the freshmen that played as a scout team, and then you're going to keep bringing kids. But this core group that you saw, you got to give them another year at least, because now they've got to be able to learn to play the game, and now they feel more comfortable heading in to Mercedes-Benz next September against Louisville. It's a lot of different things that you have to do. That I don't want to say that you have to raid the portal each and every year. It's just not a position that you want to let a high turnover year to year. You want some continuity, and we can't just get mad and say, "Well, they didn't play well. Let's replace them." Well, you got to give them some of those things. So I think we just posted the Discord link. I don't know if that works. I'm going to get it out to you, though. We're going to get it to you. So all of that to say is let these guys grow on the offensive line. I don't see them adding, unless it's maybe a depth piece, but I think that starting five is one we're going to see next year. So there we go. Let's move to the backfield. Let's talk about this thing. It's largely held in belief. This is pretty much what everyone has said, as we've been reporting. Dante Smith is probably going to come back. He's going to be a guy that's going to come back and be able to, I guess, lead that room. Jeff I'm sorry, not Jeff. I saw Matt's comment there. Jamie Felix is a guy that we saw kind of take a role later in the season. I think Felix is going to be a guy that they're going to count on. Antonio Martin, where's his development? I've told you, and we'll get into a recruiting episode next week of two guys, and we'll throw it in the Discord after this, that, are necessarily going to provide more depth. Hassan Hall's gone. Could you add a piece there? Maybe so. But once again, you got to give these guys opportunity at some point that you bring in. And I think that if you roll with Smith and Felix, and if you feel like Martin has advanced enough, there's your three. And kind of the verdict's still out on, what Dylan McDuffie's going to do. I have no clue. He kind of disappeared, everything except for special teams last year. Obviously, no fullback, no need for that. So let's talk quarterback. This is kind of where I feel the most passionate about, and this is where this conversation can go. Quarterback position rolling into next season. Now, Jeff Sims is officially into the transfer portal. Was reported today that he's going to visit Nebraska. That was a program that he was heavily courted by last season. So he's gone. Tyson Pumachan has, I think, Vince Yates or Vince Rogers, one of the two, put in the portal today. We reported that. So right now your quarterback room is Zach Gibson and Zach Pyron. That's concerning. You do not have a quarterback in this 2023 cycle. I don't believe that unless there's one they're just going to pull out of thin air. Chris Winkie. I don't see one coming before this early signing day right now. What I will say, and what we will point to, is that with the quarterback position in the situation that it is, it's going to be interesting to see how Pyron, heals. I have no clue. Like, when you break your collarbone / clavicle in 3 places, I don't know. I don't know how you're going to heal. I think we just buffered there for a second. I don't know how you're going to heal. I don't feel, while Zach Gibson did some really good things at the end of the season against North Carolina, it's going to be interesting to see, what role does he have going. All of this to say is, with 2 quarterbacks on the roster and a 2024 commit in FPD's Jakari Williams, what is the stance going forward? I talked about this in Discord today. To me, the easiest one is find yourself a grad transfer. Find yourself a guy that has maybe ties to the OC that could be coming in. Maybe he also has just 1 year and wants to go prove it somewhere. I've got a guy in mind that that comes to my mind who's in the portal, and not necessarily to take Pyron's job, but to provide some, Gavin Hart's in the chat. Appreciate you, Gavin. Not necessarily to take Pyron's job, but in really provide depth, because like we said, we don't know how he's going to heal. I'm not aware of what the timeline of this process is. But would Brennan Armstrong be interested in coming? Like would he? I don't know. I think that with all of this to say is, and Sea-Dog, we talked about it today, is Drew Pine from Notre Dame, a guy that you bring in. All of this to say is, what will Pyron's rehab process look like? You break in 3 places, and I see that we said the 8 weeks, but with surgery, him having surgery and him going through these things, what would you do? Like, what would you do? To me, if it's me, I'd bring in a grad transfer. Brennan Armstrong, I would love that option down in Atlanta. And TDJ, you're exactly right. You had to add rehab, and you also got to add the fact that he's playing a physical sport. He's not just going back to work at the office. Like, he's playing a quarterback position where he has to be able to throw the football and take some hits. All of that to say is, if you bring in a grad transfer, and maybe he splits time, maybe it doesn't work out, and Pyron comes back in as the starter. We need to remember, though, regardless of how you felt about this season, Zach Pyron was never supposed to. Will Mannis is TJ Finley, that quarterback that you had in mind. Oh my gosh. No, maybe Zach Calzada will, because a lot of fans really want him in Atlanta. Apparently he was an option the first time go around. All of that to say is, at the quarterback position, we need to understand where Zach Pyron was. This is a kid that was running the scout team. Regardless of what you think, he was never supposed to play this season. He just wasn't. That wasn't the plan. And then as he continued to develop, give him credit. When the opportunity arose, as it does in college football, when injuries happen, the biggest thing is that he grabbed the opportunity, grabbed the bull by the horns, and started to play. So in my sense of what the situation is what does he look like next year? Now people have tape on him. There necessarily, in that first couple games, wasn't really a game plan for Zach Pyron. He was doing a lot of stuff, it was very vanilla because you didn't know what the kid didn't know. And regardless of what you want to see, and I see some Stetson Bennett conversation happened in the chat. Regardless of what you see in this situation, he wasn't supposed to be the guy at any point this season. Now, I think it speaks to his ability, his IQ, his awareness to be able to go out there and just ball, as Ralph throws in JT Daniels, who would be on his 17th school in 4 years. And fans are immediately hating on Ralph for that. At the quarterback position, I think you go find somebody. Grad transfer, a guy with experience that could turn around and could help this team out. I want to see that. So I like Zach Pyron. I like his makeup. I think that's the future. You don't want to handicap the future, but you also don't want to. And Rep, you see that right there? Hope Daniels transfers to Troy. But I really want to see them add to this quarterback group. I think you have to. I think that's what you have to do. So that's kind of, the transfer portal, the wants and need wishes. If you're just now tuning in live, we appreciate around 100 viewers live. You guys have knocked it out of the water the past couple of days. Want to get your questions in now. So let's go. Ralph's got some started questions. We're going to go with this. And remember, a lot of this offensively, scheme-wise, quarterback-wise, depending on the OC, who that is. Ralph, let's get we're going right down the list, so all the started comments. Any chance we get a big QB from the portal? We kind of just talked about that. Ashton, I know you asked that earlier in the show. I don't think a big name. I think, if Brennan Armstrong's a big name, he was 2 years ago. I mean, we forget that Brennan Armstrong was one of the top quarterbacks in the country statistically 2 years ago in what he was able to do. So I like Armstrong. I think that'd be you kick the tires on that. We'll see. Let's roll. Two things we see. Ralph, we already got that. Update on Jerron Willis. We're getting to specific names. Willis has officially entered the portal. People close to him, I had heard that Tech was a destination. But I think, and I'll say this, I don't know if it's reciprocated as well. Willis has been a guy that has been kind of a tweener. And, with his size and what Ole Miss did with him this year, they had him at defensive end at some point. They had him at safety. They had him at linebacker. An athletic guy. And I had a chance to talk with someone who's really close to Jaron. And he's a good kid. But the thing is that he even knows that he was a guy who played. He was one of the best players in the field when he was at Lee County 2 years ago, last year. And when you're one of the best, more talented players in the field, it's going to be very interesting to kind of how you develop and learn the game there, Luke. And so I think that's something he wants to do. And the reason he entered the portals, he felt like with them moving him from defensive end to linebacker to safety, he was going to get lost in the shuffle. So if Georgia take an option, I don't know. Maybe they view him as they don't really know where to put him. If he is a secondary guy, we know that it's one of those guys. Russell, you're exactly right. Ralph, I'm going to hit this one, then I want you to hit the next one. Sounds like Charlie Thomas. Exactly. A little bit bigger than Charlie, but where do you play him? We'll see. Sometimes you just have to get this. Sometimes you just have to get one of the best players in the field, and you figure that out later. It's kind of Charlie Thomas. William Powell, thanks for tuning in, man. I definitely need some help in the O-line. I think so. I don't think they're going to make a big push, but I think we're going to see some of those guys take a step up. I think we're going to see some of those guys take a step up in their play, in their knowledge of the game, and the comfortability of playing alongside each other. Matthew. Bryce, I want to give you a better painting for your background, like ship you a GT painting to put up on your wall in the next couple months for your show. Matthew, that'd be awesome. Absolutely would love that. Matthew, if you're on Twitter, Ralph, go back to that comment real quick. If you would, DM us on Twitter. DM either me at Bryce_Koon, or right down there you see in the scrolling bar at the Crowded Booth, and we'll link up and we'll connect with what we need to do. Would absolutely love that as we build some good stuff for that. So appreciate that, Matthew, and he just answered right there. Vince Rogers, appreciate you tuning in. Coach Thacker should be very attractive players looking at what he's done with Ace and Charlie. I mean, I agree. Ace, I wouldn't say Ace was a finished product when he came to Tech. He definitely became, a leading tackler, a voice. But Charlie Thomas, holy cow! I think that's a guy that I'd really like to see. I really like to see what he could do in the NFL if he can play special teams. Man, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Once again, if you're watching on Twitter, hurry and come over to YouTube, right there on my profile to get your comments in. Matt over Tech's pass rush about to look like the Falcons. We better hope not. Better hope not, because this is going to be a long year for the secondary next season, that's for sure. Let's keep rolling. After the first few games of the season, back to Matthew, I defended the defense so much, and people trashed on them. Towards the end of the season, it was a different story. It was. I think if you took the full body of work after Key, the stats would look a lot different. That takes out an Ole Miss game. That takes out a Clemson game, where it looks a lot different. So I like that. Let's keep rolling. Vince Rogers, punt team is very concerning. 131st. Yeah, I mean, look, you got to have special teams. You got to have a guy that can flip the field. Where do they look for that? I'm not sure. Not really sure. So we'll see. We'll see. Keep rolling there, Ralph. Let's get through these. Who's going to step up at tight end? Look. I mean, when you look at the current roster, you look at the guys there. I mean, Dylan Leonard can come back. Luke Benson, P.J. Harris. To me, you got to go outside. You got to go outside to find a guy in the pass-catching realm. And look, Dylan Leonard is a guy that maybe just had a bad game and we're all piling on him. And that happens sometime. Let's keep rolling. As here we go. What will Aaron Joe's role be on the team? Aaron, this is perfect. He's going to be the general manager. So he will be a guy that's going to be in a big recruiting role, a big just kind of brand and image role that I think is a perfect fit. And when we talked about my concerns with Brent Key, the old school, man, you knocked it out of the park when you got this guy. That was one of my concerns, and he negated that right away with this big hire. So I love Aaron Joe. Obviously, fits the mold as well when you talk about a Tech man and keep bringing back guys with that nasty personality playing along the offensive line. A lot of Tech fans have fond memories of Aaron Joe. Keep rolling. Lost our backup QB. Yeah, Tyson Pumachan is gone. Let's get to a couple more questions here, Ralph. Heard from Choice that Jeff Sims is softer than Sharman. Oh, no comment on that, Matt. You're going to get me in trouble. Ralph, we got any more? Is that it? Is that all for tonight? Oh, is that all the starred ones, Ralph? That's all the starred ones. I'll look right here. Shanahan's still the punter as of right now. Gavin Stewart versus Aiden Burr. Look, Aiden Burr is going to be really good. Stewart provided stability at that position. That was good, but I think Aiden Burr is a guy that could challenge for the starting job next year, depending on how he goes with that ACL injury. The chosen one, do you think the O-line could be a strong suit in the next couple of years with a strong 2023 class Tech had? I wouldn't say that it's a strong 2023 class, the offensive line position. I'll say this. I think you have your center in the future in Gabriel Fortson. My hope is to get up to North Gwinnett for he and Jacob Cruz signing because I think that Fortson is going to be a guy that really translates well to the next level. I love the play of Elias Cloy. Cloy's going to be a swing guy, in my opinion, a guy that can really move, has good feet. It'll be interesting. Pumachan will be a nasty option QB. He would. Will, I know you're infuriating the Tech fans by saying, yeah, I mean Pumachan would. They ran sets with him like that for. Mojo, here we go. Because Kevin Harris break out next year, is he a bust? It's all about opportunity, and it's whether the opportunity came and went while he was in practices, or if were these guys just better and now he has a chance. I think it'll be very, very interesting to that. I think that we are just about out of comments, and we appreciate it so much. Look, if you haven't already, a little quick PSA for you. And I'm going to get to this last one here real quick. Ben, when do we actually see moves in the portal for Tech against us? I think that Tech's not going to be a major player in the portal in the sense of big-name guys. I think they add pieces. I feel like they have the roster currently how they want. I think that I want that. So Ralph just let me know this, folks. Ralph just said, as Ben, I appreciate your comment there. He said he is reading currently about the hate in the Discord for Ralph, and he's not having it. He's not having it. He might make some feelings. He might hurt some feelings, so we'll see. But hey, look, PSA for you. If you haven't already, you see this right here. This is the new logo. We've got a great shop. We've got the Brent Keith We Trust t-shirts that are flying off of our online shop, our online shelves, we'll say. And then we also have some great Swarm Talk gear, some great Crowded Booth gear. If you want to make sure you do that, it's going to be interesting as well. Hey, hit the like button. Let's get this at least 50 likes. Let's keep it rolling. It's going to be very, very interesting to see kind of how this show develops, what more we have, and if my boy Matt is going to do that. Matthew Prater, we're going to get a new painting. Can't wait for that. This is a cool painting. You can't see it, but yeah, we definitely want some more stuff. If you want to follow this, if you want to follow the show, if you want to keep this show for free, what I need you to do is I need you to like and hit the subscribe button. I think we're at 1,400 subscribers. You've done a fantastic job. I want to get to 15 because we're going to have 1,500 subscribers. We're going to do this. All right, Ralph, I just made this up off the top of my head. 1,500 subscribers. The very next Swarm Talk episode of the Crowded Booth, we're going to have one of you. We're going to have one of you on the show. Now, Ralph will kick you if you say anything crazy, but we will have one of you on the show. So make sure to get us to 1,500. Let's do it. The Discord's at 277. We need 10 more likes to get us to 50, but I'm telling you, we need about 100 more subscribers. Get us to 1,500 subscribers. My name's Bryce Koon. If you liked the intro, and I'm not talking about the Crowded Booth is coming on, that's sung by Ralph's uncle, by the way. Sung by Ralph's uncle. He does a great job. Richard, not Ralph. Richard Leary does that. He's a great baker as well. If you like the countdown, hit Ralph up for all of your beats, needs. He's in there cooking them up when he's not working at UPS. He loves it. He appreciates it. And make sure to check out everything as well. My name's Bryce Koon. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. And catch us. We're Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30, live here on the YouTube channel Talking Georgia Tech. And we do some emergency shows when the news breaks. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on social media.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce.